Frank asks, what does the long-term future hold for the animal kingdom? Will there be life billions and billions of years from now to witness the demise of our universe? It's a good question, Ariel. I sure hope there's life billions and billions of years from now. Nature seems to be a pretty resilient thing, so I doubt that anything could really stop it. I would imagine maybe there'll be another ice age or something, and the whole world will just kind of freeze over, but I feel like life is too strong a thing to be really kept at bay forever, so I'm sure sooner or later there will be life again, somewhere. Yeah, for sure. I'm not the most outdoorsy kind of person. I don't spend a whole lot of time camping or that sort of thing. I really like my home and like my home space. I spend a lot of time there. I'm kind of an indoors type person, but I do appreciate the outdoors a whole lot, and especially like the sea and water. I feel like my whole life I've never lived far away from a big body of water, and if I'm away from it for too long, I feel like I start feeling kind of weird. And anytime I go to the sea, I always feel super inspired and like really full of life. No, not really. I probably should be more than I am. I try to do, I guess, my own little part, you know. Try to recycle and do things like that, and not be wasteful and stupid about stuff, but not super like activist person about that kind of thing. Agnes Montgomery asks, what are some of your best visual memories you have kept after all of your touring? Should I think about that for a second? There's so many places I've been, it's hard to talk about just a few. I guess Japan is probably the one that springs to mind, just because I'd always wanted to go there when I was younger. I always thought of it as this sort of magical place, even though pandas aren't really Japanese animals. They're over in that zone. And I've always loved pandas, of course. My favorite animal. I guess I always thought of it being sort of this, almost like a different world or something. I was actually sort of surprised how much it wasn't all that different to me. Japan I'm talking about. Also Australia, I remember once we've only toured there once, but I remember we were on this boat and just went out sort of into the middle of the sea and just jumped in the water, and it was kind of terrifying in a way. Just like, it's almost like just jumping into space or something like that. It's like a whole nother universe under the water, and you kind of feel so helpless and so like out of your element. It's such like the most foreign place I've ever been to, unlike Japan. Still really not my favorite thing to do. I mean, I kind of feel like I value it more now than I used to. I feel like there's things I've learned about myself and about other people and about the world that I never would have learned any other way besides touring. So. I know it's to daddy's time and try to think of what you want. You have to open up your door. Anthony Prince asks, could you imagine to sync all your machines and do a straight, stripped down 4 to the floor techno track, and what would it sound like? P.S. If you did it, please send it to me. To the first question, can you imagine to sync all your machines? I can't really imagine doing that. I've had a little bit of experience really working with more like computers and like software versions of music making, and it's just never like felt right to me, or like I never felt like sort of the freedom with it, or maybe I just didn't know it well enough to find the freedom with it to really feel like I was expressing something sort of like instinctual or meaningful for me. I always felt like kind of like a slave to the machine, if you will. At the same time, like that gives me such respect for people like Pantha who do manage to like get these really like emotive types of sounds and songs out of head of like computers and stuff like that. It's not something I really have been too successful at. At the same time, I feel like I could try to do my own sort of version of like a straight up techno track. It might not sound like that at the end of the process, but going into it, I feel like I could get in that zone. I feel like the newest Animal Collective record has a bit of that sort of intention to it, like doing sort of our own version of like dance music or club music. Or it never felt like the right time, or it never felt natural to really give ourselves into that sort of inspiration. It was always there, maybe more with me than the other guys, but there's still something specifically about Detroit techno that's unlike anything else. Strict, and it's so like serious in a way that it's almost like sacred or something like that. It's like really powerful music to me. He asks, I think the main reason I'm still making music is because I feel my best work is still floating around or inside me somewhere. I was wondering if you feel like there's a lifetime of music in you, or if you're sensing an end to an era of music and would like to move on to something else. I guess I'm wondering if you feel your best work has yet to come. It's a good question. I think about it quite often, actually. But it's also kind of scary, so whenever I do start thinking about it, I try to change the subject in my mind. And I feel like with our music, Animal Collective music, and the music I do on my own, I feel like I never want to think about things in those kinds of terms, like, or be nostalgic about stuff that we've done in the past, or think like, man, remember that time, like that was the best and we really were doing good music then. I feel like as a creative person, if you start thinking that way, you're kind of like killing the creative drive or something like that. I feel like you have to always be, if you want to keep moving, you have to always look forward and feel like whatever you're working on next is going to be like the best thing that you've ever done, or the best you're capable of, really. I'm kind of in limbo with it, actually. I started out on it and then felt like it wasn't really, I want to do something really different from the last thing I did. I did a record called Young Prayer, and before one called Person Pitch, and the Person Pitch one I felt like was really, really different than the Young Prayer one, and I liked that about it. And the Young Prayer one was really different from the one before that one, so I feel like with this one maybe I need some more time before I get my head in a space that feels like it's like worthwhile giving out to other people to listen to, you know. Right now it feels like, or what I had started on still felt a little too much like a part two of what I'd been doing before or something like that, and I don't really think that's a very like valuable thing to introduce to the world. Aaron Warren asks, you guys are living the American indie band dream. Is there anything in your career so far that you feel that you've failed at or been disappointed by? I think most kids look to you guys as a model for how to do a band, and I think it'd be interesting to hear if there was anything you thought you had done poorly, or if you had been let down by anyone ever. Because he says, I think most kids look to you guys as a model for how to do a band, and that's precisely how I looked at Aaron Warren's band, Black Dice, when we first started playing with him and touring with him. They had already sort of established their way of doing things when I first met them, and it was right around the time when we were starting to play live kind of more regularly, and they just seemed to have so much fun doing what they were doing, and just really seemed to know, like, have their whole thing figured out. So I feel like as a band, maybe I can't speak for the other guys, but certainly for myself, like, I modeled the way I approached everything with the band, watching the way Black Dice did it. So it's interesting that he's talking to me that way. As far as things that I feel like I failed at or been disappointed by, the thing that springs to mind is as our workload has sort of increased, and that means as more and more people have been aware of our music and hopefully been into it, there's just like so many decisions that need to be made as far as like You know, when you're recording, where you're going to record, who you're going to record with, doing videos or not doing videos, what goes up on websites, what kind of interviews you give, and etc., etc. I kind of was initially disappointed by, and then later just came to accept the fact that you can't be in control of absolutely everything that's going on with how you're presented. And I mean, up to a point, I guess you can. As you know, if you're just a guy who wants to make records and not ever do interviews or anything like that, I mean, that's a choice you make, and you can certainly probably control everything. But I feel like if you're trying to, you know, reach wider audiences, or really kind of like you have a drive to get your music to the world, it becomes it's kind of like a give and take. I mean, there's a lot I feel like I've done poorly. Certainly shows, performances where I felt like I hadn't really done so great. The albums you have a little more control over, and there's more of like time to erase mistakes or to do things better, so I feel probably more solid about the albums than live performances. I mean, right now I'm kind of sick, and have been sick since the start of this tour, and every morning I wake up hoping that I won't feel bad and that my voice will be sort of better. But I've been disappointed so far, and that feels really bad. But, you know, you just try to do the best you can, I guess.